Well, that is back-to-back losses for your UCF Knights, losing to Kansas 27-20 at home in the Bounce House. We've got a lot to get to on why UCF ultimately lost the game and some issues with fans leaving that I know a lot of UCF fans want me to discuss. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Charge On. As always, I'm your host, Sean Green, and as always, we are sponsored by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Guys, again, we didn't want to tell you to do it, but, and listen, we did not. We did not bet against UCF. But the line for Kansas was 5.5, went all the way down to 3.5, and ultimately they did win by 7. UCF had their opportunities. But if you're going to make any bets on UCF over the next couple weeks or the rest of the season, use FanDuel. They have the best lines, bar none. Use FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, when betting on UCF this football season. All right, let's get to it. It is 1:09 a.m. Just got home from the postgame, the fiery postgame show, which if any of you want to see it go down, go watch it. I kind of talked about the whole fans leaving and all that stuff. We're going to get to it here because I do think I need to not elaborate, but there definitely needs to be a conversation. But this is about the game and UCF losing the game. And I think before the game, we discussed, and I said, listen, the focal point, the goal, needs to be keep the game competitive. Me and Nick were on the same page. We did not believe that UCF would win this game. We said we think Kansas is too talented, especially on offense, and you can only hold that offense to so, few points. If you could somehow, and we said the ways to win the game were, you're going to need to run the ball effectively. Time of possession is going to be key. You're going to have some decently long drives, finishing drives, and again, kind of trying to stop Kansas from their big explosive plays and trying to stop the run game. They have a really good run game. We knew that. And we said it was just going to be a tall task. Not saying that they couldn't win. The thought process was you just don't want to be outmatched. You don't. You want to look competitive and you want to be in the game. Well, boy, in that first half, UCF just looked like the better team. They looked like they would win the game, and there was no questioning it. I think Miles Montgomery had 99 rushing yards in the first half. UCF was running all over Kansas. They were finishing drives in the end zone. It really wasn't until the end of the first half where the rain started at a very unfortunate time, and UCF got a field goal to end the half. They got 2 field goals towards the end of the first half to make it 20-14. Now, the UCF defense was good in the first half. Kansas kind of figured something out after a couple drives, and they were putting the ball in the end zone. So I think UCF's defense had to figure something out, and it kind of felt like momentum was teetering towards Kansas a little bit towards the end of that first half. But the way you viewed it was UCF just they look dominant. They're moving the ball. The defense is playing fast. They're not really allowing too much. They're not giving Kansas. They're making stops when need be. And that's where you kind of felt like, okay, this is a competitive game. This is what we wanted. So I think you would expect me to come to the post-game podcast. You would expect me to come to the post-game live show that we did and be like, listen, they did what we wanted. They were competitive. But all the fans that were in my comments saying, Sean, why are you only setting a stand, like a very low benchmark? Why are you, not kind of, I don't know the right word. It's early. Why are you kind of going easy and not being a little bit harder on the team? I think one of the things is I've been too easy on the offensive line. Valid. Right? I've been too easy. I need to expect more from the team and not keep saying like 6-6 would be good or this team is, those type of things. Here's my thing. Today's game did that for me. It did. The way the UCF lost this game, and Scott Frost mentioned in his post-game press conference, he mentioned how this feels like he keeps mentioning and he doesn't want to have it kind of just be the thing, but he says it feels a lot like the 2016 UCF team. And I can see where there are comparisons. The 2016 UCF team, when you go back and you look, obviously it had a lot of the similar players that were on the 2017 team, but it was more so they were in some games that you felt like they could have won, and they had the talent to do it, but they would make some simple, stupid mistakes that caused them the game. And you look at UCF, and you look at what happened. Well, second half, couldn't run the football. UCF was running, and that was my one knock on Scott Frost this game, was it did feel like the runs were the same runs he was calling in the first half, and they weren't working, but we weren't trying anything new with the run game. That was my one negative. I don't really have a negative other than that. At the end of the day, I put this really a lot on the players. I do. Now, granted, Scott Frost, he was the first one to say he felt like this one was on him. Like he could have been better. And we'll get to the 1 yard not being picked up. But, UCF, it's not Scott Frost that's false starting and knocking UCF back, right? Like UCF was driving on one of their drives, and guess what happens? It's a 2nd and 8. I think Scott Frost mentioned it. There was a 2nd and 8 and false start. Knocked it back to 2nd and 13. And then, you get set. So it's like those plays have kind of happened at certain times for UCF this season. And you look at it and you're like, you could have went and scored on that drive. You could have went and put up points. And that's kind of where the frustration builds for me. Because yes, you were competitive. I should be coming on this pod saying they were competitive. It was 27-20 against a good Kansas team. Not elite, but they're good. Probably a top 3 offense in the Big 12, in my opinion, when it is all said and done. And you had a chance to win the game. Like, that's a layup. That's a layup. You just gave me what I wanted. No. Unfortunately, the way the second half played out was as hard of a watch as you could put. Because Scott Frost mentioned it. He says he can't think of a game where it was that much difference in a half, like where you are just dominating the game. And then he said he felt like the first play, or basically the first drive of that third quarter is where everything changed. Because he said if we kind of got some offense going, move the ball down the field and go put up points, it kind of changes the complexion. But the fact that you didn't go 3 and out kind of changed the outlook. And I completely agree. And then you give credit to the UCF defense. They kept you in it. You had the lead. They held Kansas to 2 field goals. And then you gave that, obviously Taven gets lit up, the sack fumble, and then they had 2 yards to get a touchdown, which they did. They had 2 yards to pick up a touchdown. They got it. That's where the frustration comes. UCF had no ability to run the football compared to the first half, where we're looking at each other in the press box like, oh, here's the run game that's been missing. Wow, that's crazy. And then the second half, what happened? It looked exactly like all the other times where we said UCF doesn't have a run game. And folks, I like that might unfortunately just be the problem. I don't think UCF has a run game. They just don't. Yes, they might break off a couple big ones. Yes, they might be able to have a good run game for a couple quarters. They have not proven that they can have a run game for more than 2 quarters at a time. And that's literally just because of this game. The first 2 quarters, they were able to run the football. After that, perfect example, what did Miles Montgomery finish with? I had the first and second quarter. I really don't even need to say the stats because, let's be real, we saw it with our eyes. Miles Montgomery had 22 carries for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. At the half, he had 10 carries for 99 yards. So he had 12 carries for 11 yards in the second half. Like, UCF, had 199 yards on the ground. And then if you take out the Taven Jackson sack, because that was minus 10. So technically, they had 209 yards on the ground. But that doesn't tell you the full story. Most of that was in the first half. Most of it was in the first half. Besides that, UCF wasn't able to do anything on the ground. And we'll get to the passing. We'll get to those, things. Like, yes, Taven wasn't perfect throwing the football. But he didn't need to be. If you run the football, you don't need to be perfect. And then you get in long third down situations, and you're expecting Taven to throw you out of it. And that's a tough position to be in. And I hope Taven's fine. I want Taven Jackson as the starting quarterback of UCF. And Cam did some okay things. Cam did some good things. The problem with Cam that I feel like I know who Cam is. Yes, I think Cam makes the right read. Cam makes the right decision on the play. The problem is I have not seen Cam throw that accurate of a pass. Like, there were plays tonight where I'm watching Cam and I'm like, yeah, like, I think he can make plays with his feet. He gets the ball to the right guy, but the passes won't always be there. And I want to see Taven Jackson in there. I hope he's okay. We might not see him for a couple weeks. The x-rays were negative. But yeah, Taven didn't have that good of a game tonight. But again, he's playing hurt, and he wasn't doing anything to lose UCF the game. UCF was dominating the game early. Unfortunately, this is the come-to-you-know-what moment. UCF does not have a sustainable run game to win some of these games. And until they do, it's going to be tough sledding. This was a team that, yes, you weren't supposed to beat, but you had an opportunity to beat a team that was technically better than you, or on paper better than you. If you couldn't sustain, if you just could, and this is where I get frustrated. If you just sustain your run game for another quarter, you win that game. You win the football game. But they couldn't sustain it for the second half. And that's really what lost you the game. Defense. You're going to see a lot of UCF podcasters, and most of them are not even going to talk about the defense. You know why? Because the defense was good tonight. The defense wasn't the problem. Sure, Jalen Daniels, 235 passing yards, only missed 8 passes, 18 of 26. He had a 145 quarterback rating. But guess what? 10 attempts, 25 yards on the ground. They kept him in check. Jalen Daniels did not go and gash UCF for much. Now, Williams, for them, was exceptional. LaShawn Williams, 12 carries, 58 yards, 3 touchdowns. It was hard to bring him down. No question about it. UCF was having a little problem tackling here and there. But again, in the second half, you gave up 6 points. You gave up 6 points. The touchdown that they gave up, I don't count. That was obviously Taven fumble. They scored on the 2-yard line. You gave up 2 field goals. That's where the frustration is coming from. And again, I understand UCF was competitive. They were in the game. But it's not good enough. It's not good enough. Scott Frost said it himself. He feels like it's 2016, but they're not going to wait until next year to win. They want to win now. They want to win these games. They're in these games, but they are a mistake or two behind the 8 ball when it comes to winning these games. Against decent, solid teams like Kansas was tonight, you can't have that inept of an offense. You can't not be able to run the football somewhat effectively. I think maybe there was a couple runs besides the Cam Fancher runs. And I think there was a Miles run where they got like 7 or 8 on one of the final drives. They were picking up 1 yard a carry or no gain, like on most of the drives in the second half. Kansas had 9 tackles for a loss in this game and 2 sacks. UCF had 1 sack and 2 tackles for a loss. I mean, that's stuff like that is frustrating. It's frustrating. UCF on third down, not good. But that also it was because they were just behind the chains a lot of the time. Penalties, again, 6 penalties for 45 yards. A lot of those stupid ones. Again, false start. Like, it's becoming a problem. They're getting in the red zone and then they're beating themselves. And that's where it's like, you got to put a full 60. You have to play a full 60. If you can play a full 60 minutes, this team actually is not bad. This team is pretty good. That first half, you're watching this UCF team, offense is moving the ball, defense is making some stops. This team isn't as bad as people are like pushing out. This team is actually okay. The problem is they can't sustain it. They can't sustain 60 minutes of just solid football. And that's where it's going to come to bite them. You have to go on the road next week to a hostile environment against Cincinnati, who's playing really good football right now. Top tier team in the Big 12 right now. Just straight up. Top 7 team in the Big 12. And you're going to need to sustain offense. That is a defensive line that is going to rush the quarterback against an offensive line that has shown some signs of weakness, especially in creating run, blocks in terms of having any good sense of run blocking. And yeah, I think if you're going into next week, there's a lot of question marks, and schedule doesn't get easier next week. It doesn't get easier. Obviously, I thought it would be easier over this game, but this kind of felt like now, it kind of feels like the game you needed to win. Because now when you look at the schedule, there's the 3 home games left, and those are all your winnable games. The other 3 are going to be the tough ones. Or the other 4 are going to be the tough ones that you have to kind of, if you could somehow pull one out on the road, that'd be great. Receiving-wise, I actually personally am fine with what Scott Frost is doing. The freshman wide receivers got a lot of play tonight. I'm fine with it. Again, I don't really see much of a difference. I know he was saying that like Speedy Thomas, he was a little gimpy, so I don't know, DJ Black, I think, was hurt a little bit. Marcus Burke's barely really getting playing time. So I think, again, it's getting those freshman reps, and I think that's good. That is a good thing. So I'm excited to see those guys continue to make plays. Again, I think Cam, when he got in there, was fine. Hopefully Taven can play next week. I think that will be big for UCF if he can somehow play, and hopefully Jakari can get healthy. I think, again, that's the frustrating thing. If Jakari Brown's healthy, let's get to let's do it. I kind of skip past this. The 1 yard play. 1 yard. I saw a lot of people saying that's on play call. Scott Frost should have dialed something up to like catch the defense off guard. You're in a lose-lose situation. At the end of the day, it's half a yard to get in. Half a yard to get in. A yard to half a yard for three tries. That is not on Scott Frost. I'm sorry. That is not on Scott Frost. If you are a football player and it is 1 yard for a touchdown, if you can't get a yard, that's on you. That is on you guys. It's not on the coaches. And I guarantee you, and that's not me trying to talk bad about the players. The players will be the first one to tell you that. They will be the first one to be like, I'm disappointed we couldn't get enough push to get past the goal line. And yes, do I think that Cam did get in on that final 4th and 1? I do. I think I see the ball. But again, there's not a good angle. And if you give the refs an opportunity to like take the game from you, that's on you. If Cam gets into the middle of the end zone, the refs are calling touchdown, they don't have to review it. But unfortunately, because it was like did the ball barely cross? Did it cross at all? You leave it up to them. And I guarantee you, if the ref on the field called it a touchdown, I guarantee you they keep it a touchdown. Because he called it short, it was getting kept short. That's not on Scott Frost. That's not on play calling. Let's play devil's advocate. In the Gus Malzahn system, if we don't pick up that yard, which let's be real, most of the time we did. Say he ran a trick play or like setting a wide receiver in motion, and then we lose a couple yards. Then everybody online is saying, why are we getting cued on the 1 yard line? If he, for some reason, passed the ball on the 1 yard line, what is everybody saying? Why are you passing the ball on the 1 yard line? Nobody is blinking twice if Cam Fancher gets in on 4th and 1. The only reason we're talking about it is because they didn't get in on 3 tries for 1 yard. That's not on coaching. That is on the players. If you can't pick up a yard, that's on them. That's not on the coaches. It's not. You should have to be able to get in the end zone there. And that's what's also very frustrating. You couldn't even get a yard when you are right there on the cusp of tying the game up, and you couldn't pick up a yard on the ground. That's extremely frustrating. It's those moments. They know what you want to do. You know what you want to do. And at the end of the day, Kansas pushed harder, and they made the play. And that's the way it goes. And I'm sure it's frustrating. It's frustrating to me watching it. It was frustrating that we're like, they couldn't get a yard? 1 yard in 3 tries. You know how hard it is to stop a team from getting a yard in 3 tries? It's almost impossible. Like, in Kansas' defensive line is not elite by any stretch of the imagination. So that's the frustrating thing there. But again, these are lessons that they need to learn and they need to go through. You had a chance to beat a pretty good Kansas team at home. And not getting in on the 1 yard line, not moving the ball on offense at all, not being able to have a sufficient run game, caused you the game. You held Kansas to 27. I don't know how many teams are holding Kansas to 27 this year. Just being honest. I don't. And that's why you can't really blame defense at all. UCF did what they were supposed to do on defense. And on offense, in the first half, they also did what they were supposed to do. You put up 20 in the first half. But you have 20 to end the game. And that loses you the game. Box score-wise, again, nothing too crazy. UCF outgained Kansas 375 to 356. Had about 80 more rush yards, but again, 70 more. Kansas had like 70 more pass yards. Taven Jackson, 14 of 23, 97 yards. Again, it wasn't that great. Cam Fancher, 8 of 14 for 79 yards. Again, I think Cam showed some okay things. The accuracy isn't necessarily all there. I'm a little nervous about his accuracy if he has to go play. I think with Cam, it really just comes down to timing and not stressing out. Like, I think on some of them, he gets the ball out so quick and he's just trying to get it done because he knows pressure's coming or whatever, and he just isn't accurate as much. Especially on that last play. You knew they were going to send pressure. But I think Cam needs to just sit in the pocket and throw it. And I think he rushes it. And that's where you see kind of his inaccuracy show up. Final thing before I go. And I promised I would talk about this on the pod. I'm not going to make this a long rant. I ranted for a very long time on the postgame show. So if you want to hear a rant on students or fans leaving at halftime and you want it more in depth, go check that out. Here's what I'm going to say. And I know people are going to have a very strong opinion either way. And I understand that. And I'm not saying my opinion's 100% right. I just know that if I didn't have a press pass, and again, I haven't always had a press pass, right? I'm an alumni of UCF. I've lived here my entire life. I've gone to countless UCF games as a student and as a just regular fan. UCF is in the Big 12. And I understand, this is not 2017. This is not 2013. This is not 2018. This is not 2021, right? I get it. This is a different era of UCF football. We are starting from ground zero. I understand that. I understand that people have lives. I understand that people have other responsibilities than going to a football game. Here's my issue. The bounce house right now does not have the same allure as it once did. When it's rocking, it rocks. And guess what? There are moments in the last couple weeks, the last couple home games, where you're like, oh, this is kind of what it is. But then the air gets taken out because students decide to leave at halftime to leave the game. I usually am the guy that understands, hey, North Carolina A&T, it's a blowout. You can go home. A couple years ago, UCF played a Big 12 game against Baylor. If I recall, it was their very first Big 12 home game. UCF was up by a lot. Some would say something you can't come back from. What did fans do? They left to get home early. And what happened? Baylor came back and won. A couple weeks ago, North Carolina, arguably the biggest home game UCF was going to have all season. It's 20-3 at halftime. By no means a blowout, but you kind of felt like UCF had control. But things can't change. What happened? Everybody left. Okay, fine. Me and Nick go into this game assuming it's a night game, crowd's going to be rocking, going to be sold out. Well, it wasn't sold out. 5 minutes into the game, it got pretty full. I'm like, okay, cool. Crowd's good. Crowd's okay. Crowd was popping. Then it rained. It rained for maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And in the second half, stadium was basically empty. If UCF wants to be a serious program, this needs to be an issue that's solved. I get it. And I know people are like, wow, like one of the comments was like, didn't know that going to a football game is like going to prison or something. At the end of the day, if you're a student and you are taking a student ticket and you're standing in that student line and you get in and then you decide in a 20-14 game in conference play where UCF is winning the game, not a blowout, I'm going to leave at halftime because it rained. I'm sorry, you shouldn't be allowed to go to another football game that season. I'm sorry. And maybe that's wrong of me to say. Don't go to the football game. Go tailgate and then don't go to the game. Like, it looks bad when people are texting me telling me ESPN is mocking UCF because students are leaving. That hurts me. I don't want people making fun of UCF. It's on the students to take care of the atmosphere that UCF has built up for years and years and years. And when I have students getting frustrated, that frustrates me. The game was 20-14. It rained for 8 to 10 minutes, and you just leave. And it's not just the students. I'm not just putting it on students. It's also people in the stands that, oh, it's raining, we're going to leave. And it's not just when it's raining either. I guarantee you, even if it didn't rain, people would have left at halftime anyway. Please put in your comments down below what you think needs to change. I don't want to make this a huge emphasis. It's not, ultimately, it's about, yes, if the team starts winning, the fans will start showing up and staying. But it shouldn't take that. If you are a student of the university and you're going to the games for free, but you're taking a ticket away from somebody else that maybe wanted to go. If you really care, then stay. If it's a blowout or if it's like out of reach by the end of the third quarter, then dip. But like in this game, it does change the environment. Kansas, the reason UCF was doing so well was not just because their play was good, but because the environment was good and it affected Kansas. On some of those fourth downs, it affected Kansas. In the second half, what happened? The juice is gone. It doesn't affect the opposing team. So now it's a neutral site. Kansas had a good chunk of fans. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to make it a bigger deal. I won't talk about it from now on. At this point, I've just accepted it. But something needs to be done. You should not be able, if you were a student going to the game for free, you should not just be able to show up for the half and dip with a bunch of people. Then don't go. I'd rather the student section be less than filled to the brim for the first half, and in a close game, it just gets taken out. Because what does that do to the opposing team? It is literally psychology. It happens to UCF all the time, where the opposing team comes out, there's nobody in the stands, and it's like, oh, well, nobody thinks we're winning. So, like, I don't know. I probably ranted about it too much, so I haven't had to give it serious thought. But no, I think students should scan in, and when you leave, scan out. And if you're scanning out before the fourth quarter, you shouldn't be allowed to go to the next game or games that season. And yeah, again, I think if you're a season ticket holder, you should stay the whole game. It's a Saturday night. Today was a Saturday night. And I get you want to go to the bar, you want to have fun. But in a close football game, it's like if you would go to a Tampa Bay Bucks game when they were bad, in a 4-point game, are you leaving at halftime? If you go to a Magic basketball game, are you leaving at halftime? You're not. So why is it for college games, the new norm is to leave? It was a 10-minute rain. It was 10 minutes of rain. And for those of you that are saying it's easy for you to say because you're up in a press box, for the Oklahoma State game, I didn't even go under the cabana. I stayed outside the entire time it rained. And that's not a pat on the back for me. That's just being honest. I'm a different fan, I guess. And I guess maybe fans now are a little bit different. And I can understand not wanting to stay for a full football game for a team that maybe isn't going to be ranked, isn't going to do maybe nothing in the postseason. I can understand that. But if you're already at the game, if you've already decided to go, how about this? For the next game, let's just try to stay for the full game. Let's just try. West Virginia, couple weeks, big time game. UCF needs to win their 3 home games. So for all the fans, if you are a student and you leave early, and I'm not trying to say you're not a true fan or anything like that. If you are a UCF student or a UCF fan, the next 3 home games are very winnable for UCF. They will be favored in all 3 of those games. That will get them to a bowl game if they win those 3 games. Do not count on them winning any of the games on the road. It's going to take those 3 home games. You need to stay the entire game if you want to give them a shot. So if you want UCF to go to a bowl game, which in part will set them up to take a leap next year, I would just say probably want to stay for the entire game. And if you don't like rain and you don't like sitting in the rain, let's bring a poncho. Just bring a poncho. I hope that this is a talking point over the summer of how we get people to stay in Acrisure Bounce House, because I'm sick and tired of this being a talking point, because this is now 2 straight seasons where fans are complaining, as they should, because they're like, people are leaving at halftime. At the end of the day, if you are in the student section and you are deciding to go, yes, you should be able to be free to leave. Just know, then you will not be allowed to go to a game the rest of the season, or you will not be allowed the next game or something to that effect. There needs to be a punishment for leaving early. Because if you know I'm only going to go for a half, then don't go. Just go tailgate and come to another game that you could stay for a full game. I know that might be harsh, but it's it takes so much out of the game day experience, and it annoys people. And when people on national TV are laughing about it, it's not a good look for UCF moving forward. I'm done. That's all I'm going to say on the matter. You could drop your comments, tell me I'm stupid or whatever you want. Just my opinion. It's very discouraging when you see after halftime what it looks like. It's every game this season so far. All right, everybody. That's going to do it for this episode of Charge On. I appreciate you watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. Do all that you do. We appreciate it. We are, as always, sponsored by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Guys, next week, they play Cincinnati. I don't know what the opening line is. UCF's not going to be favored, and it's probably going to be a little discouraging. Cincinnati's been playing very good. They just beat Iowa State yesterday. So it's going to be a tough game, and we will talk about it on Charge On. But if you want to make a bet on that game, or if you want to see the opening lines, check out FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Guys, let me know down in the comments what you think. I appreciate you guys as always, and I know you guys are true fans, and I appreciate you guys. I love UCF. I just want to see the game day experience be a little bit better for people throughout the entire game. But maybe I'm out of pocket. You let me know. All right, everybody. This has been Charge On. Or letting everybody know normal week. But we appreciate you guys all. All right, everybody. This has been Charge On, presented by FanDuel. We will see you this week.